Welcome back guys to Voicey here and another r/entitled parents. Don't forget Voicey veterans to like, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story was called Holiday Karen, long but gratifying. I am fuming, but willing to provide context. First, I've been working with children for a long time. Even the most excitable toddlers are willing to communicate politely if asked. This is why I'm easily aggravated when adults are unable to compose themselves in public. Second, I've been having issues with my ID being lost in the mail. It's been difficult to iron out and I've been running around for months reordering them. I was at the post office Monday, mid-December, yikes, to speak with a supervisor. I was lucky to have arrived when I did, as a huge surge of people trying to ship holiday packages showed up almost immediately after. I'm about 10 to 15 people behind, am in a bit of a hurry, but willing to wait because I can see employees scrambling around, trying to help customers. Always plan ahead, y'all. I chatted a bit about the long line and holiday plans with the girl ahead of me. This is common among extroverts in the US. I suddenly notice someone walking very close to me on the left side. As soon as there's a couple of feet between myself and the girl in front of me, the wild Karen steps even closer and attempts to casually squeeze between us. I ignore her and close the gap before she can cut in line, which again is extremely long. She's loudly complaining to her teenage son about how she only has 10 minutes. I told random name I'd have it shipped last week. Her son says they're already late and they should come back tomorrow. So-and-so will be fine. I'm now third in line. She huffs and begins to walk parallel to me with a huge box, again trying to nonchalantly squeeze in. I try to close the 2-foot gap, but she shoves ahead and I run into her by accident. She looks back at me and frowns. "Excuse you," the son loudly whispering, "Mum, let's just go." During the process, she has also run into the girl originally in front of me with her huge box. The girl turns around and is surprised to see a random lady where I used to be. Karen, to the girl, "I'm in a huge hurry, can you just move?" The girl raises her eyebrows and starts to say something, but the clerk calls her forward. She gives me the yikes eyes and heads over to the desk. I say nothing because I'm not trying to make any more of a scene. Karen is called up to the desk at the same time. I'm called to an adjacent one. The clerk takes my name and directs me to stand by a door and wait for a supervisor. I head over and can overhear Karen freaking out because the cost of shipping her giant package is more than $40. She demands to speak to a manager. Shocker. And the clerk tells her to hang on for a moment. The only supervisor will be at the desk in a few minutes. The supervisor, very nice, named Sherry, opens the top of the split door, calls my name, and I begin explaining my issue. Karen leaves her son and package, storms over, and interrupts. "I've been waiting for 20 minutes. Total bullcrap. "I need a supervisor right now. My package." Sherry cutting her off. "I'll be over in a moment. Go ahead and wait at the desk, please." Karen starts to argue, but OG Sherry tells her again to wait at the desk. Karen then grabs her package, ignoring the clerk telling her to wait, and steps right up behind me as Sherry takes notes and copies her information for me. I thank her profusely when I finish and wish her a happy holiday. As I'm walking away, Karen frowns and starts telling Sherry her sob story. Sherry says, for the third time, to wait at the desk. Karen whips around, but by now, the clerk has a case of the frickets and called someone else to the desk. He tells her to go to the back of the line, which has only grown. Sherry takes the brief moment Karen looked away to slam the top part of the door shut. I left before the shrieking started. I don't know if you've been to the shops in the past few days, but it's really getting bad out there. The car parks are crowded, as are the stores inside. Most people seem pretty stressed, and there are a lot of entitled parents out there, so be careful guys. This story was called Entitled Parents on an Airplane. Classic. I live in a medium-sized Western European city, with only a small domestic flights kind of airport. So when I fly international, I usually go to the closest big city, with one of the biggest airports in Europe. I often take the bus to go there because it's way cheaper than the trains. The connections are not always well timed, so sometimes I have to spend a few hours waiting for boarding. A few years ago, I discovered that Lufthansa often offers business class tickets for almost the same price as economy tickets. There are also first class tickets, which are much more expensive, but that's another story. The difference between the business and economy tickets is that you get priority boarding, almost twice as much luggage allowed, and you're seated in business class. The middle seat is empty, and the food is way better. But for me, the biggest perk, the one which makes me pay €50 more, is that it gives you access to the business lounge at the airport. There is free food, and most importantly coffee, and you can enjoy a comfy seat. So when I have to wait 5 hours at the airport, I go the extra mile and take a business class ticket whenever possible. Now, the story. A few weeks ago I was going home to Moscow, and I had to wait 4 hours at the airport. I dropped off my luggage and went to the business lounge to wait. When you enter, you have to pass a security check, showing your boarding pass to the lady at the reception. Here I have to say that I'm in my early 30s but look younger. And when I travel, I try to be comfortable. So jeans and sweaters mostly, no fancy attire. I waited in line to get inside, and just in front of me, there was Karen. The suit, the bag, the hair, everything screamed, "Look at me." And along with her was her little goblin, just screaming nonsense. Kids at airports are generally insufferable. The line didn't move for a few minutes, so I took off my headphones and listened in. Karen screamed something along the lines of,
"I've been flying with your company for years, let me in."
The lady at the reception had to call the security to help her explain that the lounge was only for people with business class tickets. Mind you, often not much more expensive than the regular ones. Karen finally gave up and stepped aside, but she stood close by, and when she saw that I was allowed inside, yelled something about how unfair it was. I was clearly cheating as I was not rich enough to be there. I went inside and ignored her. Fast forward a few hours, I'm at the gate, waiting for boarding, and then, the horror, I spot Karen and the goblin, waiting for the same flight. Great. The priority boarding is announced. I go inside and I can feel Karen's glare on the back of my head. I ignore it once again, go to my seat, sit down, and wait for the plane to take off. I don't like the takeoffs, so I close my eyes and try to relax, listening to some music. About 10 minutes or so later, I feel someone pop on the seat next to mine. I must have dozed off because everything didn't immediately register to me, but I knew it was weird because the middle seat is always empty in business class. I reluctantly take off my sleeping mask and, oh no, it's the goblin and Karen taking the seats. That's weird. I know they are not supposed to be here, but I don't say anything. Maybe they got an upgrade. A few minutes later, however, an older gentleman arrives, apologizing to the flight attendant for being late, and just as suspected, Karen was at the man's seat, and Goblin was just taking the empty seat. The gentleman tried explaining that it was his seat and they must have made a mistake. The following exchange followed.
"Yes, because this young lady has stolen my seat,"
pointing at me. No I did not. I show them my boarding pass. Then, to my horror, the goblin grabs my boarding pass and rips it with his little goblin hands. I'm not a shy person and I'm not easily rattled, but man, I was shocked and did not know how to react to this blatant display of entitlement. The commotion made the flight attendant come to us. Mind you, the gentleman was standing as his seat was taken by Karen. What's going on?
"This jerk has taken my seat. Please remove her so I can sit next to my kid."
It's her seat, pointing at me. The kid just tore her boarding pass. The pieces are still in his hand.
"Nonsense. Flight attendant, please change my seat. I don't want to sit next to this liar."
Karen screeched, the goblin cried, the engines were rolling. So, lots of noise. The flight attendant finally had enough and very politely, but loudly, said, "Lady, this is clearly not your seat. There is always an empty seat in business class. Please go to your seats and stop bothering the passengers, or I will remove you from the flight." Karen, feeling she was losing the battle, made a final attempt.
"I'm a frequent flyer. The least you can do is bring me some complimentary wine."
With that, she yanked her kid and stormed to her seats in economy. This was the last I saw of them. The whole flight was uneventful afterwards, but I did get to know the old gentleman and turns out he's often on Reddit too. The terrifying thing about an EP on a plane is that there's nowhere to run or hide. Apparently, not even if you're in business class and they're in economy. They'll just weasel their way in there and you'll wake up and they'll be sitting next to you. How wonderful. This story was called Ruining a Marvel Premiere at the Theatre and Threatening Its Manager. So let's start with this. The theatre where I work is small. It's situated in a meek town, so nothing happens there, usually. Cue the belated premiere of one MCU movie at the theatre. Most people who really cared about this film went to see it in the city, so there wasn't that much movement, and we played it on our smallest screening room. 30 to 40 people came in, mostly teenagers or parents with their kids. In walks entitled Dad, balding guy in a black jacket with a little boy, 10 at most. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea how this started. I didn't serve the man and his son. I completely missed them coming in, and only caught on to the situation later. But basically, they bought tickets and went to their assigned screen after buying some snacks. The audience took their seats. One of us workers checked the screen for temperature and phones, and all was well. Now, we check the screens a few times per screening. We have signs on all doors and by the steps leading to the screens that ask audiences to turn off their phones. There's also an announcement before every film that asks the same thing: turn off the phones. If you care to read one of those countless signs, you'll know that if you are caught using your phone in the screening room, you will be asked to leave. Entitled Dad apparently couldn't read or couldn't care less. We're strict on this because phones are really distracting. When we, workers, step into the dark room, the first thing we see from the door is the phone screen, because it is so bright in the theater lighting. They're really visible and annoying to other spectators, silenced or not. Next time this screening was checked, ED, entitled Dad, was on his phone. He was asked to turn it off. He instead grumbled and stuck it in his pocket. Then we checked the screen again after a few minutes, and again asked ED to turn it off. That's when ED decides to argue. The worker dealing with him was almost brought to tears because he was so rude. She's a young girl, and she went to get the manager. Now, our manager is a big guy, buff as all heck, tall and dangerous looking. He's a teddy bear though, but the worker who was almost brought to tears was his sister, and he wasn't nice to the person who was mean to her. Our manager goes to ED and asks him to leave. ED throws a fit. He starts to yell at the manager, angry that he has to watch this stupid movie, and that he should be allowed on his phone because he's only there so his son can see it. We don't let children under 12 in there without their parents or guardians, so yes, he had to be there if he wanted to sit with his son. Still, phones were prohibited. He claimed we should let him be on his phone and distract all the audience members because he would be bored otherwise, all while shouting at the staff and disrupting the movie, which was already running. One of our workers had to run upstairs to the control room to pause the movie. 6 months of working in that theater, that's the only time this has happened. Our manager finally won the argument and got ED to leave and take his poor son with him. I'm still sorry for the kid because I'm sure he wanted to watch that movie. The manager apologized profusely to the remaining audience, and the newest MCU movie continued to play. I had people coming out to grab some more snacks mid-premiere, and they asked me about ED and offered us support because they were worried about the staff. We also apologized again for the inconvenience, and they said it wasn't our fault. They were glad ED was gone. My manager mostly laughed about it. He said it wasn't a big deal, these things happen. His sister was shaken, but fine. We went ahead with our daily duties. Then it turns out, ED wasn't gone after all. In he marches, all alone this time. Maybe he didn't want to traumatize his child more, but I don't think he deserves the credit for thoughtfulness. So maybe his son was simply too shaken to return with him. Anyway, ED walks up to the ticket booths and asks, I kid you not, for a refund. The manager laughed and told him no way in heck is he getting a refund. We're usually really understanding and refunds aren't difficult to do, but my manager wasn't willing to cooperate with ED after he made his, the manager's, sister and his own, ED's, son cry and disrupted the premiere for a few dozen people. Besides, he broke the rules knowing he'll be asked to leave, and the movie was more than half an hour in. He had no right to ask for a refund. He called my manager rude and demanded again that he should get a refund because he was kicked out of the cinema and his son's day was ruined. Duh, you ruined it. The manager said no and told ED to leave. ED started swearing and insulting our manager, but he was halfway out the door when he yelled at the manager that he was a brainless piece of testosterone-injected meat, and that he thinks he's so scary with all that muscle, but he won't be so scary when his butt is sued. So yeah, dude threatened my manager with a lawsuit, while my manager was laughing his head off. The lawsuit never came. Neither did the dude return. If he really didn't want to be there that bad, he should have just let like his mother go with him, or let him go with a friend or something, because like, that poor kid, he just wants to see this movie. He was probably really excited. Sounds like it was a small town or something, so all his friends who got to go see it in the city, like they probably have been talking about it for ages. He's been blocking his ears, trying not to hear any spoilers. And then here he is, he finally gets his chance, and then his dad just ruins it for him. I feel like, yes, they shouldn't have given a refund to them, but I reckon they should have given like an ice cream or something to the kid, you know, like something to make it up to him, because it wasn't his fault, you know? Post your stories, memes, and fan art at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.